Have you ever wondered what a Sprunki is? Or where they came from? Well, I'm here to tell you the real story, exactly as it happened. And maybe, by the end, you'll be in a better position to help them, as they really need it right now. Sprunkis are real living creatures, full of love and positivity. They are magical and musical. Their magic comes from their music. They are born from seeds, pollinated by love. When Sprunkis are born, they are simple creatures with no arms or legs, and simple, innocent minds. They are all born gray in color. As they grow and evolve, they start to gain personalities, thinking abilities, and their physical characteristics start to manifest through different colors and various appearances. Sprunkis will turn into whatever is in their hearts, and all will look different. Their main passion is music. It's the main focus of their lives, and it's actually what helps them grow and evolve. The more diverse music they make, the more they evolve and grow. Eventually, the Sprunkis will continue to evolve until they reach their final perfect state, and will have arms and legs and appear almost human-like, but retaining their own different physical characteristics. Sprunki is a magical, musical place, full of love and kindness. They live in peace and coexist perfectly. They never have a leader, as all Sprunkis get along and take care of things with cooperation, everyone using their own talents and skills for the good of all. There are many Sprunki villages all over the world. They all exist in nature, far from the human world. They are very small and in fact are invisible to most humans. Our story begins when by complete accident, a human girl was able to see them. Her name was Jenny. She was on an adventure, playing in the woods while visiting her grandparents on their farm, far from civilization. She was walking through the woods when suddenly, the air in front of her started to shimmer. At the same time, a wonderful sound filled the air. It was music! The most wonderful, peaceful music she had ever heard. All at once, the shimmering air dissolved, and there appeared a little town with houses and buildings, gardens and fountains. She gasped as her mind tried to comprehend what she was seeing. She saw a group of little people all singing and playing instruments together in perfect harmony. The music stopped as they all looked up in disbelief. There was a human girl looking at them. The most friendly and brave of the Sprunkis were the first to greet Jenny, and very quickly they all realized she was no threat. The friendly creatures welcomed her into the town, and they quickly developed a deep friendship. Jenny loved the Sprunkis and came to visit them whenever she could. She'd bring books and read to them, which they loved. Our story takes a sinister turn when one day, as Jenny was walking to visit the Sprunkis, she came across a dark and mysterious stranger, a new Sprunki. He was dressed all in black, and so was his skin, and Jenny instantly felt a sense of danger. All of a sudden, the air started to shimmer, and a strange hum filled her ears. The black Sprunki disappeared. What was going on? She ran to warn the Sprunkis, but when she got to where the village should be, there was nothing there. She couldn't see it anymore or hear the music. Jenny had been shut off from the Sprunkis. The man in black chuckled to himself as he continued walking to the Sprunki village. This was all part of his plan, you see. A very devious, dark, and twisted plan. This man's name was Black, and so was his heart. He was on a mission, and no one could stop him. Black was from a Sprunki village far from here, and he had been traveling for months, looking for innocent young Sprunkis for his prey. His story began in that faraway village. He was always different from the other Sprunkis. He never had the same cheer in his heart that they had. He didn't laugh or sing, and he never had any friends. As he grew, his anger grew. He began to look down on the other Sprunkis and believed himself to be superior to them. Their simple, happy lives bothered him, and he dreamed of someday ruling over them. In fact, this became his dominant thought and his obsession. And his fear and anger grew. Black excelled at science and loved doing experiments. He wanted to know everything and do everything. He didn't like rules and was always thinking of ways to go around them. The other Sprunkis were so simple and kind that they didn't pay too much attention to Black, nor did they sense the danger that was brewing. As he plotted and experimented, the other Sprunkis danced, sang, and played. Black grew more intelligent, much more than the others. He started to try to take charge of whatever he could, with the ultimate goal of gaining control over them all. His experiments grew more and more advanced and complex, until one day he made a terrible discovery. He had discovered a certain sound frequency that disrupted the Sprunki music with its magical protective power. This terrible sound was impossible to hear with their ears, yet it affected their minds and bodies. They started doing things they normally wouldn't do, even acting with cruelty and anger, which was completely new to them. They had no defenses against it. Things got so bad in the town there was constant fighting. One day, 3 young Sprunkies named Oddle, Jope, and Fizzle were riding skateboards when they decided to spy on Black. They saw him inside his house, hovering over a strange box. Black chuckled and pushed a button, and all of a sudden the 3 Sprunkies were full of anger and negative feelings. Something about that box was causing it. They knew it. The problems in town were from Black's sinister experiments, and everyone needed to know. The boys ran for town and gathered everyone together and told them about Black's evil deeds. The Sprunkies, still filled with anger from the sound frequency being broadcasted from Black's house, stormed over and torched it. In a panic to get out, Black dropped the box and broke it, which is actually what saved him. The Sprunkies turned back into their loving, kind selves and stopped the attack. They allowed Black to escape, but warned him he was forever banned from there. Since then, Black wandered around, looking for new Sprunki villages, hopefully full of young, simple, impressionable, and vulnerable little Sprunkies. His heart was full of a desire to become a powerful master of all the Sprunki. If he could take over one village, he could use them as an army to attack the others until he became the ultimate ruler of all. This is where the next part of the story begins. The one you've all probably heard, to some degree. The one where Black finally discovers a new Sprunki village full of young, simple Sprunki just starting on their journey in life. These are the Sprunkies you all know and love, and where the story continues. Black came to live in this new Sprunki village. The people were kind and accepting and took him right in. He had lots of good ideas and helped them. Black knew that this time he needed to keep his evil plots to himself until the time was right. He wasn't going to let anyone stop him this time. The Sprunki village was even bigger than the first and even jollier. They all loved to play and had great games. Some of the boys really loved sports, including skateboarding, scooters, and bikes. Among them were Ratty, Oren, and Simon. Veneria loved gardening, growing vegetables and flowers, and taking care of the landscaping in town. Jevin was the shyest of the bunch, but they all still loved him and included him in everything. Pinky loved animals and took care of all the woodland creatures. Wenda loved people and planned all the Sprunki gatherings. Oax loved to play chess and was very good. Clucker was really handy and could build and fix anything. Sky was the youngest and loved to follow Pinky around and help her. Tunner was a great singer and taught music classes. Derpel loved dragons so much he started to look like one. Brud was young like Sky and loved bugs. He spent his time studying them in the forest. He has a big spike on his head and he's so embarrassed about it that he wears a bucket everywhere he goes. There was one Sprunki who wasn't like the others. He never changed color, and he stayed the same gray color they're all born with. The problem was that Gray didn't know what his passion was. He'd never developed a particular skill or a like, and he tried all sorts of things, but nothing seemed to click. Because of this, the others treated him a bit differently without realizing it. Wenda noticed this, and being the caring Sprunki she was, she befriended Gray, and eventually the two of them fell in love. Garnold was very smart with computers and technology. He got so good he even created Mr. Fun Computer and Funbot. They are both robots programmed to be Sprunkies, and through the magical power of their music, the two became more and more lifelike and alive. The oldest Sprunkies in the village were Mr. Sun and Mr. Tree. They had always been there and had the magical powers of healing through song. They watched over and guided the other Sprunki and provided wisdom when needed. All in all, the Sprunkies had a wonderful life in the village. That is, until shortly after Black appeared. Some of them had a feeling about Black and didn't trust him. Mostly Mr. Sun and Tree. They had a bad feeling about him, but couldn't quite figure it out. Immediately after arriving at the village, Black started his experiments again. He wanted to fix his cube and make it better than ever. The problem was the signal was weak and he couldn't figure out how to strengthen it. After a lot of failed attempts, he lost his patience and decided to start his secret experiments on the Sprunkies. The box's signal was weak, so he needed to get close to each Sprunki in order for it to work. He made the box even smaller and hid it inside a black hat he'd gotten to disguise it. Now he could control the Sprunkies when he was close enough to them. without them knowing. He began to plot and plan, and finally it was time to execute it. As he left his house that day, he was confronted by the friendliest Sprunki in town, Wenda. She'd come by with some fresh bread she'd baked for everyone. She'll be the perfect test, Black thought as he flipped the hidden switch of the box, hidden inside his sleeve. The evil hum began, and Wenda's eyes immediately went dark, with a weird expression on her face. All it took was a few minutes of gentle brainwashing for Black to convince Wenda that the others had bad intentions. The others started to notice her changed mood, but didn't realize Black was always near when it did. The more the frequency played around her, the more it started to change her, or phase her. As Black continued his experiments on Wenda, the more she would change into something terrible and frightening. Black called this phasing, and named this state Phase 2. This was when Wenda totally lost control of herself and did whatever Black told her to, and what he told her to do was worse and worse every time, until his requests began to be violent and dangerous. One day his plan worked perfectly as he sent Wenda to shoot Tunner with his own gun, which she did. At first, no one knew who did it. They didn't start to get an idea until more and more Sprunkis were hurt. Sprunkies have the ability to grow arms and legs and become human-like, and use their power of regeneration. Sprunkies were getting hurt and hurting each other, but were able to regenerate and heal over time. Unfortunately for Black, he realized they could also heal from phasing and return back to normal once the hum was stopped. Therefore, he needed to find a way to make his signal stronger and constant. This is where the story currently is, and what's happening right now with the Sprunkies. They're all doing horrible things to each other, but always phase back, and along with it, they lose their memories of their atrocious actions and aren't able to realize what's happening, or how everyone is being hurt. This is where you enter the story, and how you can help the Sprunkies find a way to defeat Black for good and destroy his evil experiments. Can they do it before it's too late? The more they phase, the higher the phase levels they get to. Unless something is done, there's no stopping Black, and he'll take over the whole village and turn them into his army to attack other villages. And then, the whole world? Can you help the Sprunkies? Comment down below.